An explosion in downtown Kiev. I'll tell you what is known about the incident later in the broadcast. I'm Salomia Vitvitska, and this is TSN. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, watch the broadcast, and be sure to comment on what you found most interesting. Next, draws. A few topics from today's broadcast. Putin is an aggressor, so Europe and NATO need to unite. I'm ready to impose sanctions, but they will also have to strengthen their sanctions in line with what I'm doing. What other steps is Trump demanding from the allies? The 11 people were injured in a night attack on Kramatorsk. The enemy dropped 4 aerial bombs on the city, destroying more than 30 high-rise buildings. The authorities are calling on residents to evacuate. Draws. The number of people injured as a result of the overnight attack on Kramatorsk has increased. There are already 15 of them. How is the city recovering after the Russian shelling? The head of the regional military administration posted the video on his page. Draws. Late in the evening, the Russians dropped 4 Fa-250 aerial bombs on the city. More than 30 apartment buildings, 3 educational institutions, administrative buildings, a bank, and shops were damaged. And before that, the city endured 4 drone attacks during which a gas station and vehicles were damaged. The local authorities are urging Kramatorsk residents to evacuate. The neighbors were affected. 2 days before that, my relatives were evacuated. My grandmother lived. Draws. She lived with us on the same floor. We had just taken her out, and now we've gotten in touch. And I'm also getting materials for them to board up the windows. We're getting ready to leave because it's becoming very dangerous in the city all the time. Draws. Drones are attacking everything from gas stations to civilian buildings. It's very dangerous. We are planning to evacuate in the Sumy region. Russians fired missiles at an agricultural enterprise, injuring 13 workers who were harvesting crops. The enemy also targeted the Kherson, Chernihiv, and Zaporizhzhia regions in the Sumy region. The air raid alert lasted almost a whole day. There are 13 wounded there. The Russians struck an agricultural enterprise in the Boromlanska community with 2 missiles. Draws. 12 workers who were harvesting crops in the field were injured. One of them is in serious condition. 3 dozen combines, tractors, and trucks were destroyed. There are also victims in Bilapilya homes. Civilian infrastructure and equipment were also damaged in 4 other communities in the region. And in Kherson in the morning, the Russians scattered pedal anti-personnel mines. Explosive ordnance disposal experts neutralized them. A man was killed in Berislav. The occupiers dropped explosives on him from a drone. 4 rescuers and a civilian were wounded in Chernihiv region. The occupiers targeted Nizhyn district with drones. A fire broke out at a critical infrastructure facility. Draws. When the firefighters arrived to extinguish the fire, the Russians struck again. 4 firefighters were hospitalized. A resident of one of the villages was also injured. In Zaporizhzhia region, the occupiers attacked a minibus carrying people with an FPV drone. There is 1 wounded. One of the communities was left without power as a result of the strikes. In the Julipol community, the enemy attacked 2 pensioners with a drone. 1 was killed. The suburbs of the regional center were also affected during the night. 59 enemy drones were shot down or suppressed by Ukrainian air defense forces last night. In total, 84 strike UAVs of various types attacked Ukraine. Drones were shot down or suppressed by Ukrainian air defense last night. This was reported by the Air Force of the Armed Forces of Ukraine. In total, Ukraine was attacked by 84 strike UAVs of various types, including Shade and GAN drones. Ukrainian forces destroyed more than 2/3 of them. The enemy also used 3 S-300 surface-to-air air-guided missiles launched from the Kursk and Belgorod regions. The air attack was repelled by aviation, anti-aircraft missile troops, electronic warfare, and drone units, as well as mobile fire groups of the Ukrainian Defense Forces. Draws. Situation on the front line. Defense forces liberated the village of Pankivka in Donetsk region. Pokrovsk remains the hottest section of the front. The defense forces have liberated the village of Pankivka in Donetsk region. It is located 18 kilometers from Derilia. Draws. The Russians have transferred 4 infantry brigades and 1 marine regiment to this area. However, units of the armed forces and the National Guard are holding them back. The occupiers have also regrouped and are trying to break through to Seversk. Draws. They are advancing in small groups and looking for gaps in the Ukrainian defense. According to the 54th Separate Mechanized Brigade named after Hetman Ivan Mazepa, at present, a gray zone has formed on the approaches to the city. However, Ukrainian defenders say this actually helps to detect the enemy more quickly and destroy them. Over the past day, the occupiers tried to reach the city 25 times but failed to do so. The enemy has also intensified offensive actions in the Kyiv region. Draws. In the Kupiansk direction, they are assaulting the positions of our defenders in the areas of Kondraka, Kupiansk, Pishan, and Boriska Andrivka. They often do this on motorcycles. However, attempts at a rapid breakthrough are currently being stopped. Over the past day, our fighters repelled 9 such attacks, and our soldiers also fought off the enemy about 40 more times in the Novopavka and Liman directions. However, draws. The hottest section of the front traditionally remains the Pokrovsk direction, where nearly 60 assaults took place over the past day. American officers arrived on an unexpected visit to the Russian, Belarusian military exercises, West 2025. What could this mean? American officers arrived with an unexpected visit to the Russian-Belarusian military exercises. The Belarusian Ministry of Defense released a video showing 2 high-ranking military officials greeting the local head of the department, Viktor Krenin. Draws. And all of this was presented as a surprise. In addition, Krenin himself assured the Americans that they could see everything they were interested in. The statement from the Belarusian Ministry of Defense notes that representatives from other NATO member countries, such as Hungary and Turkey, are also present at the training. Reuters agency describes the presence of U.S. officers as a sign of warming relations between Washington and Belarus. After several rounds of negotiations with Minsk and a personal phone conversation with Lysenko, draws, Donald Trump expressed his desire to restore the work of the U.S. Embassy in Belarus. The exercise, called West 2025, began last Friday, and they even plan to test the notorious Orishnik missile and other nuclear weapons there. The drill seriously alarmed NATO countries that border the aggressors, and especially against the backdrop of the incident when Russian drones crossed into Polish airspace and had to be shot down. Draws. Warsaw even decided to close the borders and asked the alliance to increase its military presence along the frontier. For the first time since the full-scale invasion, draws. The U.S. president has called Russia an aggressor in the war with Ukraine. What else did Trump say? Invasion. U.S. President Donald Trump has called Russia the aggressor in the war against Ukraine. Speaking to reporters the day before, he said that 8,000 people had died in the war over the course of a week. More from the Russian side, because literally when you are the aggressor, you lose more. Trump reiterated his call for NATO countries to stop buying Russian oil. He said that then together they would be able to put pressure on Putin. Later he expanded his call to not buy anything from Russia, whether it's liquefied gas or cigarettes. End of quote. The U.S. president published his letter urging NATO not to buy Russian oil and to impose additional tariffs on China last weekend. He says some have already responded to him. He claims that alliance partners will not deny that he is right. But for now, draws, the discussions are ongoing. They are not doing the job. They are not doing their job. NATO needs to unite. Europe needs to unite and do it. Listen, Europe, they are my friends, but they are buying oil from Russia. So we can't be expected to be the only ones acting at full strength. And Europe is buying oil from Russia. I don't want them to buy oil. And the sanctions that have already been imposed are not tough enough. I'm ready to impose sanctions, but they will also have to strengthen their sanctions in line with what I'm doing.